Today we're gonna start a series called talking about the NBA's different divisions. Today we're gonna start with the Atlantic Division, and we're gonna get into it today. And let's get it started. Okay, Boston Celtics. So, like I said, we're gonna be talking about each team in each individual division per video, and we're gonna start off with the Boston Celtics. We're gonna talk a little bit about where I think some areas of things that they need to do next year to be successful, or maybe what they lacked, and whatever it is they may be. Okay, for starters, I wrote here, find someone who can run the point. So something that I felt the Celtics kind of lacked the last year was a really solid point guard. I know Derek White kind of came in the middle of the year after the trade deadline and was able to kind of fill that role a little bit more. But when you saw in the playoffs, you saw Marcus Smart kind of running that point a little bit. And while Marcus Smart is a phenomenal and talented defensive player, I don't think that he's necessarily that passing playmaker that you would like him to be, that the Celtics kind of need, right? And maybe Derek White can fill those shoes a little bit more this year. Now that he's solidified his role a bit more with the team. But I still think adding someone who's maybe a veteran playmaker, who can kind of get those passes off, who can spread the floor for them, and really just do it all for them without having to be like a main focus of the team, is something that could be the driving force next year to actually winning that championship and going on and getting back to the finals again. And then the second point that I want to add for the Boston Celtics is really just keeping everything the same, right? Outside of maybe finding a point guard, it's the team worked. It started kind of rough at first, and you kind of didn't know where they were heading into the season, and then they turned it on unlike any other team this year. They were extremely hot. They were the best defensive team the final part of the year, or really most of the year. And you kind of saw the strides of what the Boston Celtics can be. And I really enjoyed watching them. I think that if they keep everything the same, they keep their two main guys happy, and they just find someone who can kind of play make for them a little bit more outside of Marcus Smart. I think that they're going to be successful again. I think they could make another run for the finals and maybe even win it this upcoming year if they were to keep everything the same, right? I love the roster. Moving forward to the Brooklyn Nets. So this one's kind of a fun one to talk about because I think the main thing with them is just staying healthy and being on the court, right? Their three main guys in Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and I guess now Ben Simmons, right? The biggest thing is having them all three be on the court at the same time. Ben Simmons came off of a season in which he dealt with a lot of mental health issues and wasn't even able to step on the court, right? A lot of the time he was with the 76ers until they made that blockbuster trade. And even then, I assumed he might have, been healthy enough to be playing in the playoffs and help him, maybe make a run in the playoffs. But that didn't really come through. I don't really know what's going on. We don't really know what's going on behind the scenes with Ben Simmons. I'm really hoping that he gets healthy. I miss kind of seeing him on the court. His defensive impact is amazing. And I think having him on that Nets team is going to drive him to the next level. And I think they could possibly make a finals run with that roster. Another thing was with Kyrie, is just getting him on the court as well. Like, I don't understand how they have so much talent and can't have them on the court. I know there's a lot of social issues that he deals with. But, man, you're getting paid so much money to play basketball. I'm not going to be one of those guys that's going to say shut up and play basketball, because I do believe that there are some social issues that matter, and there's some importance in your beliefs and what you what you stand for. But at the same time, like, I just miss having these guys out there, and I want to see them healthy and on the court all together, because I think this team can be crazy. And I hope that they can figure something out to where Kyrie will play all the games that he can, as barring he's healthy. And I'd really like to see the team. And then Kevin Durant, probably the best offensive weapon in the game right now. Keeping him healthy, maybe making sure that he's not, loading up on so much of the time that gets eaten up by the other two guys not being on the court, and just putting it all on his shoulder. I think you take some load off of him, and it's going to be a great team, a really scary team, a team that can be driven to deep into the playoffs and could possibly even win a chip next year. Okay, now kind of on the polar opposite side, you got the New York Knicks. What can I say? For starters, I think they need to find a direction. I think they made a lot of offseason moves that to me just didn't do anything for them. Like, yes, they added some pieces in Jalen Brunson and re-signing R.J. Barrett that are going to help them, but it's nothing crazy and nothing to take them over the top, you know? I feel like they're still going to be mid and they're still going to be comparable to last year, probably a little bit better adding Jalen Brunson, but Jalen Brunson is not a $100 million contract player. I like Jalen Brunson. I like his role in the Mavericks, and I like how he fit, but I don't think he's a number one. I don't think he is a starting... It's hard to say. He is a starting caliber point guard on a lot of teams, but at the same time, like, it's not someone who's going to take you to the next level. And with that roster, with R.J. Barrett and Julius Randle and the rest of the guys, I just don't like the lineup. I don't think the Knicks have a good direction. I don't think they know where they're going. I think they just signed a bunch of mid-tier names to kind of fill the void of not having a big-time name. And it's really, I don't think it's going to bode well for them. Maybe I'll eat my words next year, and maybe they do really well, but I don't see a lot of potential in them. Again, that second point is that their money is tied up. They have $300 million contracts, and again, Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, and now R.J. Barrett. And I just don't think they're worth it. I don't think any of those guys is worth that $100 million contract, $100 million plus contract. You can make an argument for R.J. Barrett. I think giving him that much money up front is kind of risky. He just had his first good season. I think he's a great and solid NBA player, but I don't know he's worth that much money. You know, I don't know that he's worth $25 million a year. He's possibly more in that $18 million a year range. We'll just have to wait and see. Maybe later on it does pay off having that contract, and they see that potential in him, and he kind of develops into an all-star. But for now, I just don't like where that money is tied up. And then my last point is just kind of throwing it all away and restarting. That's something that I felt the Knicks have been having to do. They've kind of been not embracing a full rebuild. They kind of had like a slight, a couple of 4 or 5 years ago, kind of had that slight, they're kind of in that rebuilding phase. They got rid of Porzingis, and they kind of had nobody and nothing going into the season. And then they signed Julius Randle, and he single-handedly carried them to the playoff spot. And that kind of brung on that resurgence of like, hey, we're a playoff team, we're a contender, we can compete with the rest of them. And I think it was just false. It was just a good season, and things happen, and situations happen around the league. And I think that was just like a false identity for them. And I think a big thing is, I know they're not going to because they just tied up all this money, but maybe just throwing it all away and restarting fresh and rebuilding is what they need to do moving forward to progress their, the Knicks, right? And get them back to where they once were, 30 years ago. Okay, another pretty interesting one is the 76ers. This whole conference is kind of interesting because barring the Celtics, everyone's kind of like, what do we do, right? The 76ers have the runner-up MVP and possibly, arguably, you could say a top 5, top 3 NBA player last year. And even just coming into next year, in Joel Embiid. And they have another top 15, 20 guy in James Harden. That alone should kind of, put you on the totem pole of playoff contender and finals contender. But it really doesn't. For some reason, every time with the 76ers, just something doesn't bode well with me. It doesn't fulfill my need of, and it doesn't really, it doesn't surprise me that they get first or second round in a lot of times, or they don't reach the finals. It's just they're lacking something, and I feel like a big part of it is having all that money tied up in Tobias Harris, who is he's a good player. Don't get me wrong, I really like Tobias Harris, but I don't think he's worth that money, and it's one of the one of the more bad contracts in the NBA. And I won't say worse because there's definitely worse ones, but it's one of the more kind of lopsided contracts where he's getting too much money and not outputting the amount of money he's getting paid, right? I think maybe getting him off the books, trading him for more shooting, and being able to spread the floor a little bit better. It's something that is something that the 76ers kind of need to take key of and keep in mind, because I don't think Tobias Harris is worth that money. I'm going to keep saying that and reiterating that over and over again because he really isn't. And I think they just need to trade him off and do something better with him. Another thing is giving Tyrese Maxey more opportunities. I think you need to be able to play alongside him with James Harden, and they both need to kind of be in tandem and work off of each other instead of James Harden just kind of taking the ball. And I know he gets a lot of assists, but I feel like he is a player that needs the ball in his hand a lot. And Tyrese Maxey kind of is that as well. He's kind of a smaller guard. Good shooter, actually. Coming into last season, I was kind of confused on if he was a good shooter or not. He kind of proved it that he was a better shooter this season. And I think he can be that for the 76ers. He can be a good shooter, a decent defender, and someone who's going to help carry the load of having the ball in his hands and also being able to feed Joel Embiid. And then the last point is just taking care of Joel Embiid. I think that's your most important key goal here is taking care of Embiid, making sure he's healthy, making sure you're not loading too much off him. He is your best player by far, and he is a top 3 NBA player coming into next season. And I think you need to keep it that way, and I think you need to solidify prioritizing him over everybody else and make sure he's happy. And I think that's going to uplift your team into that, playoff contender possibility of a finals appearance. And lastly, the Toronto Raptors. Something that I felt the Raptors lacked last year was that veteran experience. I think their oldest guy was Goran Dragic at a point, and he played, 5 games, 6 games. He didn't play much of anything. And I think something that the Raptors need is some veteran leadership in the locker room, on the court, someone who can talk them through. They're a very young team, but they're very talented. I really like the Raptors. I'm really having high hopes for them. And I'm hoping that Scotty Barnes progressing this year will take him to that next level and possibly, get him a playoff spot. Another point that needs to be made with the Toronto Raptors is their interior depth. I think they have a lot of guys that kind of fall in that 6'7" to 6'9" range, but they don't have a lot of bigs down low. And I think it's something that they need. They need some defensive help on the big side of the ball. The front court they need to run a lineup in which your center is not 6'9", They ran Pascal Siakam as center last year, and while I love Pascal Siakam, he's not someone that you want running as your center. He's more of your power forward, and he's just undersized at this time. And I think that you can get some better help up down there and get some size, and I think that's what they need. And then last year, they need shooting. Shooting is such a bad thing for the Raptors. I think they ranked last or second to last in shooting percentage last year, and 3-point shooting percentage. And that's you can't compete if your 3-point percentage is that low. You're just not going to get far in today's NBA, and that's something that they need to make a point of. The Raptors were really successful last year compared to what I thought they were going to be, and they did that with a lack of shooting, right? Imagine what they can be and what they can do with adding some shooting onto their team. And while I could kind of talk about each of these teams a lot more, and I feel like there's a lot of things they kind of can need, and maybe we'll progress them to the next level, that's going to kind of do it for today, guys. I really enjoyed kind of talking about each team individually. I'm going to enjoy going through each division, kind of breaking down what I think their key points of things they need to do moving forward and what can take them to the next level. And yeah, I had a ton of fun today, guys. On the screen, you're going to see one of my past videos. Go ahead and check it out. If you like what I'm talking about, if you like what you see, go ahead and check out some of my other videos. Subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate that. And yeah, we'll see you next time.